When I decided to fix a young boy's damaged motorcycle for free, knowing his deployed father had built it for him, I thought I was just doing what any decent person would do. You would not believe what happened after I made this gesture. I had no idea my boss would fire me for it, or that a video of my firing would go viral and bring 17 millionaires to my doorstep with an offer that would change everything. My life was forever changed after that day. Hi everyone, welcome to Life's Changing Stories. Now, let's dive into today's stories. Sienna Walsh was 31 years old and had learned to measure her life in small victories and smaller paychecks. 3 years had passed since her husband Ryan died suddenly of a heart attack at 29, leaving her to raise their 7-year-old daughter Emma alone. The life insurance had barely covered the funeral and medical bills, forcing Sienna to downsize from their cozy rental house to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in the older part of Billings, Montana, where the radiators clanged and the ceiling leaked when it rained. What kept Sienna going was the work Ryan had taught her: small engine repair. He'd been a master mechanic who could make any machine purr like a kitten, and during their 8 years together, he'd patiently shown her everything he knew about engines, transmissions, and electrical systems. After his death, those skills had landed her a job at Mountain View Motors, a motorcycle and small engine repair shop owned by Marcus Brennan. Brennan was a hard man who reminded Sienna daily that he was running a business, not a charity. Despite being the most skilled mechanic in the shop, with a repair success rate that exceeded even the veteran mechanics, Sienna was paid $2 less per hour than her male colleagues. She arrived first and left last, never complained, and had earned the respect of customers who specifically requested her for their repairs. But Brennan seemed to view her single motherhood as a liability rather than recognizing her dedication. Money was always tight. Sienna had become an expert at stretching every dollar, making stews that lasted 3 days, hemming Emma's clothes instead of buying new ones, taking on odd jobs like snow shoveling and house cleaning on weekends. Her Emma's college fund coffee can, hidden behind the flour in their tiny kitchen, contained exactly $423,067 after 3 years of saving whatever coins she could spare. The day that changed everything started during the hottest week of July. Sienna was working on a vintage Harley when she heard the shop door chime. She looked up to see a skinny 12-year-old boy with tear-streaked cheeks, struggling to push what remained of a small motorcycle through the entrance. The boy introduced himself as Lucas Cooper, and his story broke Sienna's heart. The motorcycle was a custom-built mini-bike that his father, Staff Sergeant James Cooper, had assembled from scratch before his deployment to Afghanistan. It was painted military green with Lucas's name airbrushed on the tank, and despite being small, it was a masterpiece of engineering that represented countless hours of father-son bonding in their garage. "A delivery truck didn't see me at the intersection," Lucas explained, his voice shaking. "It's completely ruined, and Dad's coming home next month. He's going to be so disappointed." Sienna examined the wreckage. The frame was bent, the engine was cracked, and most of the custom paintwork was scraped beyond recognition. It would need almost complete rebuilding, requiring specialized parts and dozens of hours of work. The repair would easily cost $800, money she knew Lucas's family didn't have, and money she definitely couldn't afford to lose. But looking at this devastated boy, thinking about Emma growing up, without Ryan's guidance, Sienna felt a familiar ache in her chest. "Don't worry about the cost, honey," she heard herself saying. "I'll fix it." "Really?" Lucas's eyes widened with desperate hope. "But I don't have any money." "Bring it back after 6 tonight," Sienna said quietly, "after Mr. Brennan goes home." That evening, after Brennan had locked up and left, Sienna let Lucas in through the back door. She spent an hour carefully cataloging every damaged part, then drove to Henderson's Auto Parts and spent $127.53 of her grocery money, nearly 2 days' wages, on specialized components that Brennan didn't stock. For the next 4 evenings, Sienna stayed late at the shop, working by the light of her phone's flashlight to avoid detection. She rebuilt the engine from the ground up, straightened and welded the frame, and painstakingly restored every custom detail. She even managed to recreate most of the airbrushed artwork using steady hands and automotive paint she found in the shop's storage room. By Friday afternoon, the mini bike looked better than it had before the accident. When Lucas saw it, he was speechless for a full minute before bursting into tears of joy. "It's perfect," he whispered. "Dad's going to think it's magic." That's when Marcus Brennan walked through the front door. "What the hell is going on here?" Brennan's voice boomed across the shop. His face was red with fury as he took in the scene. Sienna in her work coveralls, tools scattered around the restored motorcycle, and Lucas standing beside his repaired bike. "Marcus, I can explain that," Sienna started. "You've been using my shop, my equipment, and company time for free repairs," Brennan shouted. "I've got security footage of you working on this thing during your lunch breaks for days." "I paid for all the parts myself," Sienna said calmly, though her heart was racing, "and I did most of the work after hours, on my own time." "I don't care if you paid for the parts with gold bars," Brennan snarled. "You're stealing from me. Plain and simple, kid. Get that junk out of my shop." Lucas looked stricken, but Sienna nodded for him to take the bike. As he slowly pushed it toward the door, Brennan turned his full attention to Sienna. "I've overlooked a lot because you're a decent mechanic," he said coldly, "but this crosses every line. Clear out your toolbox. You're fired." Sienna felt the bottom drop out of her world. Without this job, she and Emma would be evicted within a month. She had no savings, no other prospects, and no family to fall back on. But she kept her expression calm as she began packing her tools, refusing to give Brennan the satisfaction of seeing her break. What neither of them noticed was the small crowd of customers who'd gathered near the front counter, drawn by Brennan's raised voice. Among them stood Alexander Rhodes, a tall man in his 50s, wearing a simple flannel shirt and jeans, who quietly observed the entire confrontation with growing interest. After Sienna finished packing, Rhodes approached Brennan with an easy smile. "Excuse me, I need some work done on my bike," he said. "That lady who was just here, she available? I heard she's got real skill with these machines." "She doesn't work here anymore," Brennan replied curtly. "Company policy violation." "That's a shame," Rhodes said thoughtfully. "Well, maybe you could give me her information. I'd be willing to pay well for quality work." "Not my problem," Brennan snapped. "You want your bike fixed or not?" Rhodes studied Brennan for a long moment, then shook his head. "I think I'll take my business elsewhere." He turned and followed Sienna out into the parking lot. "Ma'am, excuse me?" Rhodes called out as Sienna struggled with her heavy toolbox. Normally, Sienna would have been wary of strange men approaching her in parking lots, but something about Rhodes's demeanor, respectful, genuine, concerned, made her pause. "I couldn't help but overhear what happened in there," he said. "Would you mind if I gave you a ride home? That toolbox looks heavy, and I'd like to talk to you about something." During the 10-minute drive to her apartment, Sienna found herself telling this stranger about her background, how Ryan had taught her everything about engines, how she'd been supporting Emma alone for 3 years, and why Lucas's motorcycle had meant so much to both of them. "I had a bike like that when I was his age," Rhodes said quietly. "My father built it for me before he deployed to Vietnam. Never came home." He paused. "What you did for that boy, that matters more than any business policy." As they pulled up to her apartment building, Rhodes handed her a business card. "Alexander Rhodes, CEO, Rhodes Industries." "I'm not offering charity," he said firmly. "I'm looking for skilled people who understand that business is about more than the bottom line. Think about giving me a call." That night, as Sienna tried to figure out how to explain to Emma that Mommy had lost her job, she saw herself on the local news. Someone in the shop had recorded the confrontation with their phone, and the video was already spreading across social media. The clip showed Brennan yelling, Sienna calmly explaining about the parts and after-hours work, and his cold dismissal of "not my problem." By morning, the video had been shared thousands of times, with comments pouring in about Sienna's kindness and Brennan's heartlessness. People were calling Mountain View Motors, demanding to know why they'd fired the angel mechanic who helped the military kid. At 6:23 a.m., Sienna was awakened by her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, knocking frantically on her door. "Dear, there are people gathering in the parking lot," Mrs. Patterson whispered urgently. "Nice people with expensive cars. One gentleman told me there are 16 business owners downstairs waiting to speak with you." Sienna threw on clothes and went downstairs to find an extraordinary sight. At least a dozen luxury vehicles filled the parking lot. Mercedes, BMWs, even a Tesla. Men and women in business attire stood around talking quietly, and in the center of it all was Alexander Rhodes. "Good morning, Sienna," Rhodes said warmly. "I hope you don't mind the early hour. I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. We call ourselves the Guardian Angels Network." Rhodes explained that each person present had been helped by a stranger at a critical moment in their lives, someone who expected nothing in return but changed everything. Now, they used their success to do the same for others. Eleanor Martinez, owner of a chain of restaurants across Montana, stepped forward. 40 years ago, a mechanic fixed my delivery truck for free when I was starting my first restaurant, she said. That one act of kindness saved my business. When I saw your video, I knew we had to come. One by one, the business owners shared their stories. The teacher who'd given extra tutoring that led to a scholarship, the banker who'd approved a loan when no one else would, the contractor who'd done work for free that kept a struggling family in their home. Each success story had begun with unexpected kindness. "We're not here to offer a handout," Rhodes explained. "We want to invest in you. Your repair success rate is 22% higher than industry average, and customers specifically request you by name, information your former boss never bothered to share." Eleanor Martinez stepped forward with a large cashier's check. "This is a gift with no strings attached," she said firmly. "Recognition for 3 years of being underpaid for your skills." Sienna stared at the amount and felt her knees go weak. It was more money than she'd seen since Ryan's life insurance payout. "But that's just the beginning," Rhodes continued. "We want to fund a new motorcycle and small engine repair shop in Yellowstone County, a place that offers quality work at fair prices, teaches kids valuable skills, and ensures no family is turned away because they can't afford repairs. You'd be the owner and head mechanic. We provide the startup capital. You provide the expertise and heart." Sienna was overwhelmed, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me." "We know what matters," Rhodes replied. "That video showed us everything we needed to see. A town that would let someone like you go is a town that needs you more than they realize." For the first time since Ryan's death, Sienna felt a weight lift from her shoulders. I need to think about this." "Of course," Rhodes said. "Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready." Later that day, as Sienna showed Emma the preliminary sketches for the new shop, complete with a learning area for kids and a wall honoring military families, she explained what had happened. "Remember when I told you that Daddy always said kindness matters more than money?" Sienna said, holding her daughter close. "Sometimes, kindness finds its way back to you in the most amazing ways." Lucas and his mother visited that afternoon with a homemade thank you card and fresh-baked cookies. They told Sienna the video of Lucas's motorcycle repair had gone viral with over 2 million views and people from across the country calling Mountain View Motors, asking for the lady who helped the soldier's son. "Mr. Brennan's probably not too happy about that," Lucas's mother said, with a grin. Sienna laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd had in months. "I imagine not." 1 year later, Walsh Motors celebrated its grand opening on Main Street in Billings. The shop featured a state-of-the-art repair bay, a youth apprenticeship program where local kids could learn valuable skills, and a fleet of refurbished motorcycles and small engines available at cost to families in need. Near the entrance, in a place of honor, sat Lucas's custom mini bike, donated by his family after his father safely returned from deployment. Underneath it, a plaque read, "For those who believe kindness matters more than money," in memory of Ryan Walsh, who taught us that fixing things means fixing lives. The shop was more than Sienna had ever dreamed possible. She employed 6 people, including 2 single mothers who'd been struggling to make ends meet. Emma's college fund coffee can had been replaced by an actual savings account that grew steadily each month. And most importantly, Sienna had built something Ryan would have been proud of, a place where helping others wasn't a policy violation, but the whole point. As Sienna watched children learn to change oil and adjust carburetors in the shop's workshop area, she understood something profound about the nature of kindness. Sometimes doing the right thing costs everything: your job, your security, your immediate future. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, it gives you back even more than you lost. The video that had gotten her fired had also shown the world what really mattered, that in a time when profit too often trumps people, there are still those willing to sacrifice for a stranger's smile. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe notices and responds in ways more beautiful than any fairy tale. Emma often asked her mother about that day when the business owners came to their apartment, and Sienna would always tell her the same thing. "Kindness is like a seed, baby. You plant it without knowing what will grow, but if you're patient and keep planting, sometimes you get the most amazing garden." Walsh Motors became more than a repair shop. It became a symbol of what was possible when people chose compassion over convenience, heart over profit, and hope over fear. And every time Sienna saw Lucas riding his perfectly restored mini bike around town, she remembered that sometimes the smallest acts of love create the biggest miracles. We hope you enjoyed today's story of love, life, and betrayal. For more free stories and entertainment from our channel, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications.